Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, whenever this finds you. Welcome back to the Unique Beauty and Meditation Podcast. I am your host, Caryn Slack. I am your resident spiritual and energetic life coach. I'm excited to introduce you to your energetic and spiritual self. There's a beautiful wholeness that comes with exploring that kind of self-care, and I'm here to help you with that. Today, I am here with my good friend, Danielle from Divine Clarity. We are taking a journey through the chakras, and we are having a casual discussion about the different chakras and how they show up in our life and what we've noticed and what we do for work and what we do for ourselves. Um, so we are on episode 2 of an 8-episode series. And today we're going to talk about the root chakra. So if you have not seen the first episode where we talk about chakras in general, and I introduce Danielle and she shares a little bit more about what she does, go back to that first episode, check it out, leave your comments as to what resonates, follow, subscribe, share with a friend, all that stuff. Good morning, Danielle. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm a little scattered. I probably need to do some grounding. Speaking of.
Perfect timing.
So we're here to talk about the root chakra. The root chakra is our base chakra. It is the base chakra of our 7 main chakras, and it is located in our body. I'm going to share the screen to show you. So in this picture, you'll see all the different chakras going up through, and you'll see that the root chakra is located in the base of the body. And the color usually associated with this chakra is red, although I find myself leaning into many other colors for it. And deals a lot with like our hips, our lower back, a lot of those base organs, our legs, our knees, our feet, toes, things like that. And it often helps us with safety and stability and grounding our energy. It handles some of the community or tribal energy, understanding where we are in the world and associating with our communities in the world. There is definitely some extended family and family dynamics, our home, what have you. Danielle, what else? What else am I forgetting?
I don't think you are. I'm just every once in a while you'll say something and I'm like, we've never talked about that before. And that was just sticking in my head when you say the color is usually represented by red. And I'm thinking to myself, like red stones. I don't own any red stones. I don't connect with red stones. Hematite is always my go-to for the root
Right.
chakra, and that's that gunmetal gray, shiny. Um, I don't think I have a piece here, but it's such a beautiful grounding color for me, and that's usually what I think of when it comes to that. But go ahead, I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because often for me, it is red, but it also is a dirt color with a notion of the earth and the ground. And it is a terracotta color because that feels more earthy, or like you said, black, or the color of hematite or smoky quartz or obsidian,
Mhm.
connecting it to those stones with that notion of, and metals. For me,
Mhm.
copper, actually, I'm hanging on to a piece of copper today. I mean, doesn't look coppery, but it is. Um, Copper and silver are very much root chakra colors for me. If I'm working in a meditation, silver feels like it's a color that grounds our energy and also reflects away. So there's a little bit of that safety and stability to it.
That is so funny because silver to me is very much crown chakra. When we were talking last week about imagining a white light, I almost said silver or white light because I will bring in a silver light sometimes.
Yeah. So
Hey,
this is why we're doing it. This is why we're doing it, and this is something that I want to bring up that I don't think I mentioned in this podcast. Um, these are our conversations, and this is why we have these conversations, is because we each are our own individuals and we have our own energy and our own experience, and we have our own way of connecting with these energy centers in our body. And so if you're taking a course or you're listening to a meditation or you're reading something about chakras and it feels like that's not what I've done in the past, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means that your expression of that energy, if it feels authentic to you, is just a little different.
Mhm.
Um, and we're not here to contradict any other traditions or any other experiences. We're here sharing our thoughts and our ideas and what we've experienced about these chakras. Um, One thing that happened for me, I was doing some research for my unique chakra series course, and there was some discrepancies between traditions as to what organs and what systems the root chakra addressed. And some of them were like we had talked about, like the kidneys and the colon and all of that kind of base stuff. Ooh, hold on one second, please. Okay, so we had to pause the recording for a minute. Par for the course. It's fall here. The creatures are, finding their winter homes. And I had a spider earlier before we started the podcast that crawled in and under my couch. I'm not a spider fan, and it was a wolf spider, and he wasn't a small thing, and he moved quick. Right in the middle of recording the root chakra, he starts crawling out from underneath. I'm like, whew, I need to ground. He started crawling out towards me from underneath the couch, so I had to pause it and go take care of that spider so I could feel safe and stable within my environment. I don't even remember what I was saying now. Hmm,
Systems that it's affecting in the body.
traditions, right. So as I was doing this research,
Like your fight
there
or
was,
flight mode. Just
I know, right? There was, there was, Chief, settle down. It's okay, dude. He's like, what's going on, Mom? Okay. A great grounding technique when you have something that comes in and throws you off cycle is to stop and breathe. That's a really great grounding technique, and I needed that for a minute. So, when I was doing my research for this chakra series that I was offering, this course that I offered, there was the one that I usually use, like we said, the base of the body and like the colon and the kidneys and those type of systems. But then there was some other traditions that put the reproductive organs in the root chakra versus the sacral chakra. And that really threw me off. And I'm like, this is what I've learned through all of my training. Why is this different? And it just went to show that there are different traditions and there are different notions that celebrate them in different areas. It just means that they celebrate a different flow of the energy. It doesn't mean that one is right or wrong. Just like, I don't know, I guess I'm going to tiptoe into this a little bit. Just like the notion that there is not a right or wrong religion,
Mhm.
everybody has their own unique expression, their own divine expression, internally, energetically, and externally. So we're here to celebrate all viewpoints. So that being said, tell me a little bit about your experience with the root chakra.
Well, we'll stay with this, how it affects the body. One of the things that's affected by the root chakra is the digestive system, bowel, colon. And I had a very significant experience with that, having diverticulitis multiple times over many years, and actually had to have surgery and part of my um, intestines removed in that surgery. And, for me, doing what I do and people I know, it was asking questions like, what am I having trouble digesting? What is so upsetting in this area? And you really have to take a look at your life and see what's going on. And I did, and I know a lot of things that came up for me that you really have to maybe not get control over, but to just realize, to acknowledge, to take steps to remedy these things in your life. Because as far as I'm concerned, if I didn't fix those things in my life, then I wouldn't have fixed my stomach issues with only surgery. Make sense?
Yep. Yes, absolutely. I love that. And I love that you allow, oh, so many thoughts. I love it. You allow the fact that the surgery is going to fix the physical and you're taking steps to fix the energetic. And the
Right.
idea that it doesn't have to be one or the other, that we get to have this conversation where there is this whole body experience. And I've had that experience in work before where I've had people come in and they're working with a physical issue, very physically on in their, whether it's with a doctor or a physical a physical therapist or what have you, and we're working with it on an energetic level. And it leads to other chakras and other things, but it gets to be a whole picture conversation. And I love that.
Absolutely. In my mind, if I'm not fixing the worries, the concerns, the issues that I feel contributed to this physical bodily issue, then it's just going to come up again or manifest in another way.
Absolutely. And I feel like the root chakra is one of those things when things come up when we are dealing with whether it's an imbalance or something feels active in the root chakra or the root chakra is involved in something. I feel like often a large part of the conversation is feeling safe and stable in whatever experience is happening in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And
For sure.
I know one of the things I have seen in many clients recently is that safety and stability factor within the root chakra. And a lot of times when we do energy sessions, instead of starting up here at the crown, we'll start at the root. I'd say probably lately, probably 95% of my energy sessions have started at the root to create that safety, stability, and to slow down that body and ground it into this moment because there's so much going on with life and there's been so much that has gone on for years now that it gets to be overwhelming. So we need to find that safety and stability.
Absolutely. We talked about this last week. I am finding the same thing. I'm not so sure it's 90%, but it's darn close to people coming in with root chakra issues and, fear of or traumas or body memories or whatever that has happened in the past coming up for them again and not allowing them to move forward and keeping them stuck out of fear that it's, going to get worse, that it's going to happen
Yeah,
again.
absolutely. And a couple of thoughts with that is, and I guess they're kind of connected because when you talk about, and I just lost the word as to how you said it, so correct me if I'm saying it wrong, like previous life situations. And I feel like sometimes it becomes a multi chakra conversation within some of those experiences because so often I've witnessed where younger things that happened when we were a child or younger self or previous life situations can hang out in the sacral chakra. However, it's not just there, it's a conversation that happens by creating that safety and stability in your body first to learn that it's okay to open up to moving that energy or to addressing and healing. And
Right.
sometimes it's opening up the heart or opening up the solar plexus to go along with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday who's been through some traumatic relationships. And she had just ended one, a very unhealthy relationship, and moved into her next one not too quickly. It was a while after, but she was not feeling safe and secure and confident, and her heart was still kind of closed off. And she had gone with this person, broke up for a little while, went back, and she said, I knew in my gut it was wrong. But like they said all the right things. I allowed it to go. So I'm like, heart chakra's closed up, throat chakra's closed up. It was bringing in everything, solar plexus energy. She didn't have the confidence to believe what was coming up for her. She believed this person instead.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, definitely.
so it feels like it's almost like there's these energy patterns that are surfacing or showing up in our life. And instead of these energy patterns sitting in one chakra, it's almost like these energy patterns are showing up in our whole chakra system is learning how to digest and free, liberate, or incorporate these patterns into our life as a whole versus this energy is going to move specifically through this space. And it feels almost like it's an evolution of our energetic process. Whereas before, it may have been just a one chakra deal, but now because we're more complex it feels like than we were and things are more intense, it's that whole chakra conversation.
Right. And then, like we said again last week, or I said, the root chakra is our foundation. And if that's off, everything moving up that line is going to be a little misaligned and not feeling secure.
Absolutely. And we had that conversation about the digestive stuff like you mentioned with the root chakra, how you had some surgery within the digestive tract and what have you. And we had had the conversation before we started the podcast that our digestive system also sits in three different chakras. And there's different areas of that system that sit in the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root chakra.
Well,
And
oops, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Now that you bring that up, of course, more realizations happen all the time. This happened in 2020. I was in the hospital by myself. So now that you're bringing that up, the situations I was going through at that point in my life that I was having trouble digesting were very emotional and did knock me off my game with my self-confidence and my self-esteem. So yeah.
Both
Mm.
sacral and solar
Take
plexus
one solar
issues.
plexus. Oh, and
That's,
let's put heart back in there too. Yeah, all of it.
yeah. So
So
like
yeah.
I feel like our root, our heart, and our crown, I feel like are just about a part of every chakra conversation.
Hmm.
I feel like if you work on your root, you work on your heart, you work on a crown, then everything else is just going to show up how it needs to and digest it in other ways. Like I feel like those are powerhouse chakras. And it's funny because when I first started doing energy work, I was resistant to the root chakra. Like, excuse me, I remember one of my first Reiki practitioners that I would see, she would often tell me, you need to ground your energy, you need to ground your energy. And I would do the things, but my heart wasn't in it because I don't want to be in the root. I don't want to ground my energy. I want to be up here. I want to,
Hmm.
experience the intuition and the spirituality and the energetic connection. And I don't want to do that stuff. But that stuff is so much more important to create and keep us in this moment. And I think that so many of us more energetic and spiritual individuals that like to live in these chakras up here need that root chakra to keep us in this moment.
Right. And it's
It's,
usually what we're most resistant to and what we want to avoid that we need the most.
yep, absolutely. And I think for me, um, the root chakra activities and meditations are more so to balance and stabilize my energy. And I realize now finding that grounded energy is important for the way my brain works. Having explored and connected with the notions of how ADHD shows up in adults, I find that very much validates a lot of my experiences in life. And that grounding meditation goes a long way to practiced over time, not just one and done, but practiced over time, it becomes a tool that I can lean into when the anxiety and the overwhelm of my mind is getting to be too much. If I can ground my energy, it creates this stability that allows me to feel more focused and anchored in this moment.
Right. Yeah, imagine being in your crown chakra in that airy fairy energy all the time. That
Mm.
for me, like I'm already getting an anxious feeling just thinking about it. I think I'm so used to being that grounded person, and I need to work more on that crown chakra
Yeah,
energy feeling. It makes me very anxious to feel like, oh, I'm not grounded.
right. It's funny because I'd have to say that yeah, I can't say as I'm anxious to be in my root chakra anymore, but it definitely would have been the opposite at one point in time.
Mm.
So, what are some of the ways that you personally show up for your root chakra in life and professionally show up for others' root chakras and work?
Well, I think personally, I think that is the easiest for me. That's always my go-to. If I'm feeling off in any way, I will go outside. I am that person who walks around the yard barefoot most of the time. Not that it's harder this time with all the acorns on the ground, it's a little more painful. I love rocks. I collect rocks everywhere we go. I have rocks in the car, rocks in the house, everything to bring me back to nature and
Mhm.
ground me. And, I had petrified wood right here in my hand and on my desk all the time. So I think that is my go-to. I'm a very physical person and grounded person, and that's easy for me. And I try to help my clients incorporate that into their day-to-day, like we talked about last week again. I have homework for them and, you know, try to figure out what works for them. Maybe nature is not their thing, so I will suggest drumming or bringing in the color red. And if you don't like to wear red, maybe a red door, like I've been noticing behind you. Red flowers, bring them into the house, something.
Yep,
But
I love that.
also, I'm very much about intention, and I will say, like we talked about before, red is not necessarily my color. So I will tell people, pick a rock up off the ground, pick a piece of wood up, whatever resonates with you, whatever feels good with you. It is a reminder to, take that breath, keep your energy grounded.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. For myself, I'd have to say one of my go-tos is a grounding meditation.
Mm.
Um, Visualizing those roots going into the earth. And when I when I first started meditating and I sit in meditation and people are like visualize roots going into the ground, I used to judge myself so, and it's I guess now I can see the parallel so much because I couldn't visualize those roots going in the ground. I'm not seeing diddly squat in my head. What are you talking about? And now that I've practiced it over time, I can pull up that image in my mind and I can visualize those roots moving through the earth and expanding and bring up that visual of the roots of the tree in my mind easier. And initially it was hard for me to be grounded, and now it's easier for me to ground and that image is there. So when you stick with it, even if you don't experience it easily at first, it doesn't mean it's not working. It
Mhm.
just means that your human resistance is witnessing the challenge. So that's one of my go-tos. I love root chakra grounding music. That's one of my, when I'm having a hard time finding my way to meditation or focusing at all, I'll play, like I have a 396 hertz playlist on Spotify, or I'll play brown noise and those just sit and listen to it and breathe. And that feels very grounded to me. Like after that spider, if we had had a moment, I would have pulled up some root chakra music and been like, "Ooh, it's okay."
Mhm.
Um, And I find Ava, that's one thing she likes is brown noise. When things feel super cluttered or overwhelming in her mind, we'll pull up that brown noise or that root chakra music and hang on to a salt stone or hang on to some root chakra stones. I also find some other activities grounding that I wouldn't necessarily peg as meditative, but like making a meal.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
funny because making a good meal, like a soup on a fall day, on a Sunday, or being in the kitchen if Will's making tacos and just being there and have a conversation with him, or like the nights when, even though it's chaotic, if what before Leah went to college and she was here sharing and Ava was here, and yeah, it's all crazy, but there's still like everybody's home and it feels centered in the house. Those things can be grounding to me, and they're very life activity
Yeah.
versus meditative activity.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I noticed the difference right away. I automatically went into doing and being, and you went into meditating and imagining. And that's just how different we are. It's amazing how different we are, born on the same day, just saying. But we
Right?
are completely and totally different with the way we react. But you make a really good point about talking, just talking to someone, just being in someone's presence can bring that energy down so much and bring you back into the moment. I know there used to be a time where I was terrified to drive over this one bridge in our area, and I would call my husband at work every time I was approaching that bridge just so I could talk to him over. And he's like, I know where you are. And I'm like, yeah, just, give me 2 minutes of your time. And then, but it's very grounding. I didn't even think of that, but I do that.
That's cool. That's actually, you make a very valid point about the conversation of it, because to me it was more so just being in the presence of in my home with family, but it's that conversation. I've done that before. Heck, I've done that with you multiple times. And I
Right?
know
We've done
that
it together.
I know that my daughter, my oldest daughter has done that. And we end up having these big, deep conversations, but it feels like it takes this energy that's stuck in our mind and stuck in our heart or stuck in our throat, and it brings it down and out in life and organizes it and spreads it out. because so often we're stuck in our head and we have all of these experiences and thoughts and emotions and energy that's happening here, and it's pulling ourselves out of that experience and being in the simple, sometimes even mundane moments,
Mhm.
realizes that you're not all of this, that you're this too.
Right. And it can take the urgency or the fear out of the thoughts that we can get ourselves into when you take that
Yep.
time to talk to someone and then you go back to that thought again and you're like, all right, it's not feeling as urgent or as fearful as it was last time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find professionally, when we're in energy sessions and we do a couple of things, we do grounding in the beginning. Like when clients come in and they're sitting and they sit down for their first 2 or 3 energy sessions, and a large chunk of it is focusing on grounding their energy, they notice a big difference in those first few sessions with simply feeling peace in their body again, and a settling of the anxiety because we're grounding their energy specifically. And
Right.
it's really cool. I've had this experience multiple times, and I don't know if originally I mentioned it when we were talking about the bodies, but the toes being a part of the root chakra. To me, the bottom of our feet and our toes are such a big part of the root chakra. And when I'm doing energy work on people, it's like they have this energy that's like stuck here and stuck here. And when we start grounding their energy, it's almost like a visual of the energy releasing and moving. I have a visual of them taking their energy and releasing it down their body and out their toes. And while
Mhm.
I'm imagining this in my mind, not necessarily saying anything out loud, I'll be envisioning the energy heading out the bottom of their feet. Their toes will twitch. It feels like it's happened way more times than to be a coincidence.
Right.
And it, to me, that's the energy leaving and grounding in their body. And I love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. So any other thoughts on the root chakra? Like, was there, I feel like I'm kind of losing track. I feel like we talked a lot about what we mentioned talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I don't think we're missing anything that we were
Very
looking
cool.
to talk about.
If you had one little tip for people with a root chakra, what would it be?
You mean with the energy, fixing the energy if you're feeling off, or
Yeah, either fixing the energy or getting to know their root chakra or whatever comes up first.
well, the first thing that came up, that's why I asked, was you mentioned it, how important breath work is. I think it's the number one tool. So if you're feeling off, if you're feeling depressed, anxious, uncomfortable, breath work is the go-to for me. That's what I tell my clients all the time. That's what I use myself. Just stop and breathe. And you can
Very
do
cool.
that. I don't know what it's called. There's a box breathing. I just breathe in and count to 4 or 5 and then breathe out and count to 6 or 7 or hold
Yep,
it sometimes. I don't necessarily hold it all the time, but breath work can always bring me back down very quickly.
I love that. Yeah, and there are so many different options for breathing, like
Mhm.
counting with your breath, like you said. There's lots of different versions. Often I like to I'll breathe in till 4 and then I'll hold it for 5 and 6 and then I'll breathe from 6 down through 0. And it's that exhale that feels like we're really anchoring it into the earth.
Right. And that act of counting is getting your mind focused on something else rather than what's ever going on in your head. But if you're more of a visual person, they have apps for it. They have the breathing apps where, something will expand while you're breathing in and contract while you're breathing out. So you don't have to think about anything. You're just watching.
I love that. Very cool. I forget about those.
Mm.
Um, I'd have to say yes, absolutely with the breath work. Um, and I lean into meditation. I lean into the visual of the roots going into the earth. And I really like the notion of finding that day-to-day activity that grounds you, whether
Mm.
it's cooking. A lot of people garden.
Yeah, big
Um,
one.
Oddly enough, and this is what it's, I don't know why it didn't come up more when we were talking, but one of my grounding activities that I actually resist often is cleaning my space.
Mm.
Like if I clean up my living room and I vacuum the floor, then like I will feel much more present and comfortable and grounded in my space.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so I guess those are the ones that come to mind right now. Very cool.
Yeah.
So we talked about pulling some cards to honor the chakra that we visit each session, or at least for this session anyway.
Yeah,
Is
for
that
those of you who
something?
don't know, Caryn and I usually have a deck of cards in our hands while we're talking.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to share with people, you had kind of touched base on it earlier, but me and Danielle share a birthday. We were both born on January 18th. And I love that. I love that. And that we are, like you said, we are so different
Mhm.
and yet very similar. Very
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, we usually have, that's like my go-to. In a lot of my videos, you'll see me either fidgeting with a stone or shuffling a deck.
Mhm. For sure.
So
It's
would you
comforting
like
and
to
grounding.
exactly. Yes. Yes. Fidgeting with a stone is definitely a go-to grounding activity. But yes, apparently shuffling the cards.
Yeah.
So do you want me to pull first or do you want to pull first?
I'll do it. So
Okay.
I have just a regular deck of playing cards in my hand. It's called Cardomancy for those of you who don't know. It's just my go-to. I like it, even though I'm a tarot reader by trade, but I do use Cardomancy in my readings as well, but it is absolutely my go-to. It's, like I said, keep it simple. This is very simple for me. It's direct, and that's the way I like to use it. So we were going to ask, what's the most important thing everyone listening needs to know about their root chakra? I'm
Sounds
also
good.
very much a very clear question, gives us very clear answers, just saying. So let's ask, what does everyone need to know about their root chakra? I like to pull three.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So what I came up with is that think about it. Sometimes it's kind of hard to put into context, but I'm feeling right away if you can connect to your soul, sort of your heart chakra, that's going to bring peace and contentment when there is worry and you're facing challenges. So it was 10 of hearts, which is that peace and contentment card. 7 of hearts is a soul destiny card for me. 4 of spades is a very challenging, abrasive, kind of argumentative energy, and the challenge card came up. So if you can take that moment, if you can get some kind of grounding exercise in and reconnect with your soul, with your intuition, with what's going on in your heart, not in your emotions, that's where you can find your peace.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. And I love, again, that leans into that notion that our conversations are multidimensional within the chakra system. It's multi-chakra conversations and
Yeah.
it's energy that hits on different levels. And they work together and accent each other. Um, Thank you for sharing that. And I love the way you use cardomancy cards and or just plain deck like that. I don't know, there feels like there's such a classic tradition that goes to that. And I feel like ancestral classic tradition energy is very much a root chakra vibe as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I kind of forgot about this until you mentioned and did your little reading. So if I can go off course from pulling a card for a minute.
Sure.
One of the things that I realized recently within the notion of that multi-chakra visit, and I feel like this is really what you're like, you hit it on the head when you were reading your cards, is we for so long have maintained this low level of fight or flight in our life
Mm-hmm.
because life is so busy and things have been so intense for the last 5 or 6 years that we have stayed with this. We're going to maintain, we're just going to keep going, we're just going to survive. We're just going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's no longer sustainable. And in doing so, people have shut down their heart. People have shut down their crown. And it that's not sustainable long term because the other chakras around it are trying to do the work of our heart and a crown and they're not able to do that long term.
They're not qualified.
Right. So one of the ways that I've been noticing to help people start to get to listen to their heart and open up their heart and their crown again is by creating that safety and stability in their body again,
Mm.
teaching their body that it's safe to be stable and to be grounded, that it's safe in life so that they can move into healing and listening to their heart again. And I feel like you said with the cards, listen to your heart, allow yourself to ground and listen to your heart. That's an activity that has been harder for so many people for over the years. But I
Yeah.
guess in the long run, grounding your energy makes it so you can open up to your heart better.
Right. And I really do feel like, when we get that initial hit from our heart, from our intuition, from our gut, we know it, and then we allow our ego and our head to talk us out of it and bring all the other fears and insecurities in around it. So when you get that initial gut feeling, that soul feeling, just remember it and try to go with it.
I love it. Very cool. Thank you. So I have the Soul's Journey deck by James Van Praagh. It was in my camper and I was going to record this podcast on my camper originally, but apparently my internet was unstable out there and I couldn't stay. So I brought it in with me. So we're going to pull a card from here and we're going to ask the cards, what do we need to know about our root chakras today? Or what energy can we introduce into our root chakras today? I'm much more general with my question.
Very different.
Everybody does it different. I just got to say, I love that our different ways of doing things, being that we're both born on the same day, is such a beautiful expression of you don't have to always fit into the way your zodiac sign says you should, and that
Mhm.
it really is an individual energy.
Right.
Okay, we're going to go over here. Service. I feel good when I can help others. Okay,
Mm.
so I love this card. It's so funny because neither of these colors are related to the root chakra right away. I mean,
Mhm.
green, as far as the nature and color, sometimes being out in nature can be very grounding. And the idea of green in nature, like right now, before the leaves change, I have a lot of green outside of my house. So it's very grounding for me to go out and be in that green. But usually green is associated with the heart and yellow is associated with the solar plexus. However, I love the notion of being of service of others. And so often when we get stuck in our head and we get stuck in our worries and stuck in our fears, going out into our lives, going out into the community, going out into the world, whether it's a digital world or our actual physical community, and finding a way we can help others helps to ground us back into reality, takes us out of those fears, takes us out of that rumination, and brings us back to, okay, this is here, this is real, this is somebody else, and I can be useful, I can be capable, I can be stable enough to help somebody else. And I know for me, most of the times, if I'm going to be ungrounded, it's going to be in the morning. And to be honest, I can be a hot mess in the morning sometimes. I mean, God love Danielle, she hears it sometimes. But one of the ways that I find when I feel like I'm most messy in the mornings, one of the best things for me to do is to get out of my house and go do something. Like often like it's go to work and be there and help somebody there or go like it used to be like go and do a haircut, go into the salon and do something there. But for it keeps coming up. One day I was feeling really hot messy and I went and gave my parents a haircut. And being over there and giving their haircut was very grounding for me. And then when I got home, I was more clear, I was more stable, and things were more centered in my body. So you don't have to always figure out how to do it internally. Sometimes changing your situation, getting out and helping somebody else gives you that sense of community so that you can be more stable and get out of your own mess, get out of your own, excuse my language, but get out of your own shit because we get stuck in it a lot.
When I saw that card and you started talking, I immediately thought how humbling and empowering it was, both. to
Yep.
realize you are not unique in your struggle. Well, in your individual struggles, yes, but everyone struggles in their own way. And that's
Yep.
kind of humbling to, when we think the world revolves around us for so long. I had that issue. And realizing that other people need you or need help and need the community, and that how empowering that is to be able to be that for someone else. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely. Exactly. And we feel like our problems are so big and they're so scary. And when we're in that rumination, they're so enveloping. It
Mhm.
absolutely can be humbling. And I feel like there's also a bit of a double-edged sword with that because you still want to be aware of the depths of what you're feeling. We don't want to shove it away and just
Mhm.
automatically discredit because I see a lot of people that are service peoples or people that want to help others, people pleasers and people caregivers and people
Mhm.
that simply have a heart to help others that so easily set their stuff aside to help others. And
Right.
sometimes that can end up being a way to avoid looking at our own stuff. I'm going to
Mhm.
help other people, and that ends up being the validation tool versus I'm going to look at my own stuff and help other people at the same time. So I feel like there's a double-edged sword that it is super humbling to be like, okay, this isn't as big a deal as what I'm making it. I get to settle that down. And at the same time, we don't want to do that so often that we discredit our experience either.
Absolutely, 100%. And we don't want to get into that. There's a kind of like a knight in shining armor energy that I was feeling when you were talking about that. And it's not our job to save everyone. And yes, to give a helping hand, but
Yep,
don't get into that savior mode. It's our job to save ourselves, everyone.
absolutely. Very cool. So, random thought, and then we can be done with the root chakra if you want. But do you have a person that's more grounded that you like if you think of the people in your life, do you have somebody that is naturally have more grounding energy than what you would? Like you're like out of all the people in my life, that is the person that is definitely more grounded and helps other people ground without thinking about
Oh, well, that's because when like I said, when I need something, it's my husband. When
it. Yep.
I call him, when I reach out to him, there's safety, there's security, there's confidence behind that. He goes right into I got you mode. You
Yep.
know, he's
Yep.
not looking to save me all the time, but when I make that phone call or when I reach out to him, he definitely is the one to be like, take a breath.
Yep.
Let's just talk this out. And for sure, he is that person. But it's funny that you mentioned that because he's working on it, but he's very much that people pleaser and that helper. He was always someone who was in the volunteer fire department in some kind of service. So you know that very well. So he is accustomed to being service to people, but he's again gotten much better at knowing his place and his boundaries, but he for sure is my go-to.
Very cool. Yeah, and I guess that brings up the conversation about boundaries and the root chakra, but my
Mhm.
go-to, my automatic first thought is Will. Like Will is definitely a sense of ground in my house for me and for both of my daughters. God love them, because if we're all spinning up here,
Yeah.
he's still level and even keel. Like he is level and even keel in some intense. He is a volunteer fireman. For those of you who don't know, my husband is a volunteer fireman and has been for years, and you can't take the fireman out of him. But he is able to stay even keel in some of the most intense situation. Like, how do you naturally stay grounded when you are facing a fire or a car accident? And like he does, God love him. It's just a natural ingrained thing.
Right.
So yeah, I think that we can take inspiration from people like that, but also I feel like they have a root chakra experience of their own because there is that it's easier to help others or rescue others, and finding that stability or that boundary is more of their root chakra stuff. Very cool. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Well, that is our conversation about root chakras, everybody. Thank you for hanging out and stick with us. We have 6 more chakras to go through. This is episode 2. And like we said in the beginning, if you did not listen to the first one, go back and visit it. Let's take a minute. I don't know if you have something you want to share with them that you're offering, but I have something I would like to share with them that I'm
Oh, why don't you go first? Because I did it
offering.
last week. I didn't know we were doing this again. She's
I was
always
going to
putting
tell
me
you
on the
earlier,
spot.
right? I was going to tell you earlier. I had the thought as I went to get my coffee this morning 5 times. I got to remember to tell Danielle that. Still didn't. So I'm have a special for this podcast and for the future podcasts. I have a unique chakra series course that I offer. And I just this week, I'm so excited to have it up there in my virtual classroom on my website, uniquebeautyandmeditation.com. I'll save it in the show notes. I have if you go to the virtual classroom, you scroll down, I have a unique chakra series level 1. And this is a course where we talk about chakras and we go through a general chakra meditation. And I have actually a discount code for you to use to get 50% off of this chakra level 1 course. And it's only available for people that listen to the podcast. So if you go to check out, you can use the code POD50, POD50, to get 50% off of that when you register for that class. So check that out on the website. I'll save it in the show notes below and take an exploration through your chakras.
How very cool is that? So I think I will just share what I'm working on currently. It does have to do with the root chakra, but more so I feel like with the heart chakra, but as we talked about already, things affect different chakras. And in our first episode, I talked about a lot of heart chakra issues that I had to work through. And things are coming up, not for me, but I'm noticing with my clients coming up again. So I have started a pet bereavement coaching course that I am really enjoying and finding it helping me. And I know it's going to help a lot of people that I come in contact with in my business. So I'm looking forward to finishing that and getting started and helping people in more deeper ways.
Very cool. I love that. And I love the way that when we take courses and we learn things, it just provides us more tools to implement in our services we already offer. And I love
Right.
that both of
A lot
us
of people
continue to
have
do
been
that.
asking me lately if I have connected with pets before, and yes, both live and deceased. And for me to have this background behind me and to help better support people in their grief during these sessions is exactly what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. And I don't know about anybody else, but I know even if he is a crazy fool, Chief actually is very grounding for me at times. He
Hmm.
makes me be present in this moment, whether it's I have to figure out what he needs, or so many times if I'm in my chair, he'll get up on the stool and like he'll put his head down and we just like hug. It's like we hug it out and it's very grounding. So I think that when we lose our grounding source in our pets, yeah, that can definitely throw us off. Very cool. I
Absolutely.
love that. I'm excited to hear how that course goes for you.
Thanks.
So, thank you very much for being here. We look forward to hearing your feedback about this podcast by liking, following, commenting, sharing with a friend. That's how we know that you are enjoying these and that we can continue to do this work. Having Danielle on my podcast I'm humbled and excited to have her here for this series, and hopefully we can offer you more connections as we move down the road. So, continue to celebrate your uniquely beautiful self and enjoy this chakra experience in your life. Very cool.